Hello, fellas. Welcome this Sunday evening.
What up?
How's it going?
Them boys got they kind of forever on.
They got their
forever.
Got a rep,
Got a rep. We got a rep. Mr. Chadwick Boseman. Rest in heaven. He has been a pivotal figure in our lives, watching the roles that he's played, such as Jackie Robinson. Black Panther, I think, is the biggest one. I think it's allowed a lot of our children to see a Black superhero, to see not only a Black superhero, but a place where Black people were thriving, doing well, and doing great. So, we want to make sure that we start to show up by showing him his respects and, prayers and well wishes to his family and his loved ones.
Yes, sir.
Wakanda forever. But what's going on, fellas? So, how's everybody holding up today?
Man,
solid. We on a late night show like BET After Dark.
Yeah, BET Uncut.
We doing Arsenio Hall type numbers.
Yeah.
Hey, we trying to. We brought back one of the crowd's favorites, Mr. Patrick Turner, back in the building. You know what I'm saying? How you doing, brother Pat?
I'm doing fine, man. Thank you for having me back on this show today, man. And I just want to say a couple of things wearing my folks. You feel me? Mr. Forgiving, Alex Baker, he got his clothing line, so I'm trying to support also. My boy Joe Ski got the dope dad hat, you feel me? Dope ass dad, so always representing. And then just lastly, you feel me? I also lost a little loved one too recently, man. My mom's best friend / my aunt. You know how we grew up in a Texas village. I just lost her to Deborah Shorter Jones to COVID. So that's real rough. It's real rough at this time frame for my family or such, and just showing respect. And I'm glad to be able to be in this place to mentally talk, prepare. Everything that we always focus. We always have other things that we got going on outside noise, but we still got to remain focused and be able to deliver a message. So this is what we hear today, man, bringing all of that to the forefront. Appreciate it, y'all.
Yeah, prayers, man. Condolences,
Prayers
brother.
up to your family. Prayers up to your family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, prayers to the Jones family.
Also, I just want to say, obviously it's been a tough, rough couple of weeks. R.I.P. Virgil Thomas, Sergeant Thomas from the Richmond Police Department, another African-American sergeant who was influential in my life, who we lost to COVID. So R.I.P. Virgil Thomas, man. It's been a tough couple of weeks, man. It just feels like a lot of stuff is being lost. So, it's tough. We got to get through it.
And that actually, and our R.I.P. to Virgil, and his love, showing love to his family and his loved ones, as well as the Jones family. I think a lot of that stuff segues into what we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk about Black mental health matters. A shout out to Nia Ridgel and Ridgel Consulting. You can find her on Instagram at Ridgel Consulting for the shirts. But I think we're going to be able to talk about with all the loss, with everything that we discovered here recently. With we had the march on Washington that was a couple of days ago, and although that was something that was great to see, the reason in which a lot of those people were out there was because of obviously the losses that we've had in these streets. We recently had Mr. Jacob Blake, who was shot in the back in Kenosha, Wisconsin, in front of his children. We've had a lot of other people who have had their lives taken between now and the time when George Floyd, and even before then. So how is everybody's mental health? How are you guys holding up today?
I guess I'll start. You know what? It's challenging because a lot of the times you're trying to figure out what's the best way to put this all into a productive perspective, and it's hard to come up with it. So, and then to turn around and try to educate your children on how they're feeling and actually tap in with them to make sure that they're mentally healthy. It's another hard thing to address to. So, mentally, I'm glad I have outlets to address my thoughts, but at the same time, it's a challenge. It's a challenge because as you try to put this together, you just don't know where to start, and it's hard to make sense of all of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I would say not to back or anything like that, but it's of course as Black men we know it's a challenge. Just for one being Black in America, it's a challenge. But these images we keep seeing, like we talked about it previously, with the Jacob Blake and the Breonna Taylors and everybody like that. Man, it's just hard to keep seeing it, keep watching it, and keep knowing that nothing is really changing. It's really tough. Like all the advocating we do in our professions, our jobs, and trying to be productive citizens, it seems like it isn't enough or get washed away, or like how can we get more? You know, how can we do challenge and like Paris said, is just reaching out to like brothers or sisters and talking about stuff and getting stuff out there and having those meetings behind closed doors to kind of figure out what we want to do, where we want to go. Get our list together, kind of like how Ice Cube was talking about. He got a list of things he needs. We got to get that together as a community. But as far as my mental health, man, I'm just trying to maintain, just like everybody else. It's a tough thing to do.
Yeah, I'll say too. I mean, my mental health right now is super volatile, and that's just the truth for me. I feel like, you know, as culture, as people, and I know we'll get more into it today, we're just taught to endure. And now that we're starting to have conversations about our mental health and try to be aware of those things, I think we're now finding that there's a lot of things going on around us, or I'm finding a lot of things are going on around me that's challenging, you know? So my mental health is very, very volatile. Thank God for my outlets, because I don't think I'm the type of person that can have that type of volatility. So thank God for my outlets, because it's tough.
Go ahead, Pat.
Oh yeah. And I think the last time I was on here, we had just kind of wrote off of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and in the midst and the heart of all protests. And it kind of felt like things had died down for a little bit. Just kind of wrote off. Oh, somebody need to mute their phone. Mental health was a little bit challenged. We got NBA back. You feel me? Lakers was doing their thing, and then you know what I mean. As you get a good glimpse of what life could possibly look like. Here's a reminder, just like terrorism does over and over. You feel me? It just sends subtle reminders that, man, you still in the same place. So in terms of just checking in and making sure that where you are mentally and physically, man, as a Black man, it's hard to stay conscious and aware and still take care and provide, you know, and I'm glad that we have outlets like this. But come on now, is my connection stable?
We can hear you.
Yeah, you good?
We can hear you. Good. Keep going, brother.
I froze for a minute, but I was just saying, man, you know, I'm just glad to be on a platform to be able to kind of elicit the messages down to the younger generation and to just people in general, no matter the age, to kind of keep going.
What about you, Al? How's your mental health?
Oh,
You on mute?
We can't hear you, Al.
Now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, mental health is mixed. Just navigating through working and dealing with what's going on socially. You know, I'm on our racial justice task force at work, and I've been trying to explain to them the effects of working while teaching them how to deal with me, and understanding the impact that it has to be a Black man in an institution that has had numerous racial incidents that happened that get kind of brushed under the rug. And now there's this like rush to do something, all while I'm processing and dealing. They're asking me to lead the effort and for help. So, you know, it's just a mixed bag of feelings, just dealing with, you know, where does the help come from? You know, where does stability come from? Where does trust come into a play now? You know, my everyday now is when I get up and go to the store, my thought is if I see a cop rolling down the street, I'm like, I hope they don't get behind me. Although there's nothing that's wrong. So, you know, just my mental health it's in a place where it's cool some days it's uneasy. Some days it's just a big like think tank of trying to process and think, how do I get above and beyond, you just the issues that are surrounding us.
One of the hard things is how do you navigate this space? I mean, for us, it's uncommon in the sense that we got so many variables, so many factors going on in the world right now that it's hard to just focus on ourselves, because part of what's going on in the social justice movement is there's so many people that were watching their families hurting, right? It's hard to complain about, movie theaters not being open and, can't do shopping and can't do those things right now when you're actually watching people being murdered on TV and their families are not given the consideration and the respect that someone who may have had a different skin color would have been given. So I think, our mental health is so important. I think for me, I struggle, and I struggle on, what to say, how to say it, when to say it, and to make sure that I'm not allowing what I see or what I witness to become so overwhelming that I can't do my job. I can't lead my family. I can't, be a role model for my son. So it's always a struggle. It's that counterbalancing of making sure you have those healthy things that you do for fun to kind of balance out the stress and overwhelming factors that we see kind of going on in the world right now. One of the things that is important for all of us is to, at some point, figure out how important our mental health is and take those steps. Why do you guys feel like in our community, people avoid going to counseling? What's the issue? What's the stigma with mental health within our community?
It starts. I guess I'll start. It starts with this whole thing of, I don't want to go sit on this old white lady's couch or this old white man's couch. Let God handle it. Right? They don't understand me. They don't know me. They don't know anything that I've been through. So we start with that. It's like representation. We don't see, or we hadn't seen mental health in the Black community in the forefront. We always went with go to God or go to your elders or whatever. It wasn't a topic of discussion. Now we're trying to move it to where we are now. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 gentlemen in this group right now that are in the mental health field and mental health advocates. So it's always been a conversation of representation. So I think that's been a stigma. And then it's like, well, if I'm different, that means that I'm not valuable. Or if I have this issue, or if I have this mental health problem, then, it's messy. Nobody wants to deal with messy. Or, those type of deals. When in actuality, we all have a struggle, regardless of how big or how small. We all have something that is inflicting us, whether it's a vice or a mental health problem, whatever it is. So we all have something. And trying to normalize it is something that I think that we're doing now. I don't want to take up all the time because I know we got 4 of the men, 4 of the guys here that they can talk about it.
So I'll say for me, it's like, right, I don't want to be judged. That's like not being judged on somebody's couch. And I also don't want to be judged by somebody that, people around me, right? Like if I'm acting out or I have some type of mental health issue or something like that, people, as a lot of us in the Black community feel like, oh, then they'll start attaching that to you. Like, well, he do that because he go see that counselor. And it's like, well, at least you can attach it to something. A lot of us aren't willing to just sit down and identify with our true problems and have that conversation. And then another thing I think in general too is like, we're just taught to endure. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter what you go through, you're supposed to endure. If you come from a certain neighborhood and it's rough and there's been traumatic experiences, you're supposed to take that as a badge of honor and endure. But people don't understand that for every one of them badges of honor that you get, they might not be a scratch or a scar on your body, but they are a scar on your brain. And we're not doing anything to heal them. We're not putting no cocoa butter or none of that stuff on there. We're just literally taking these situations and we keep on enduring. And I think slowly but surely it has an effect on us, whether it's killing us inside or whether it's just, breaking us down mentally to the point one day we end up snapping.
Yeah, I think it's because another perspective is that how you gonna heal me when you don't know my story or you haven't really lived my lifestyle? So how you gonna teach me or show me the path to get into healing when you don't know my struggle? So we had this talk before where I was like, man, how many therapists are out there that are Black? And you guys made reference and it'll come up, I think, in this conversation. But in general, when the masses that you see are all not people that can relate to your your lifestyle or where you're from, you're like, what information can you really give me that's going to help me grow? So I think that's
that's kind of cutting into something. I got some stats here from the American Psychology Association. So only out of 3 people in the African American community that need mental health services, only 1 of those 3 people receive it. This is as of 2018, this study. So this is not old, this is new. And then as far as black men, like we're black men and we have 4 here in the mental health field. For every 5.8 women, that's only 1 black male therapist or somebody in the psychology field. So the representation again, how can she tell me what I've been through? How can this person that isn't like me tell me what I feel? Because it's so far in between, but we are out there. We are here. Get on Psychology Today and Google or find you a black therapist because we are here. But the representation, we don't see them on TV. We don't see any of that. Right. All we see is Ayana, and she's not a therapist.
And I'm gonna be a little controversial right here. And at the same time, it's like, as a black male and media or people are promoting Ayana, and I'm like, why would I want to turn to a black female to discuss black male issues? I want to talk to a man. Not to say it's bad to talk to the female, but I'd rather talk to a man so you can be like, do you understand where I'm coming from? Maybe she can find a way to connect and maybe she does her job well. But at the same time, I think a lot of black males are like, I need somebody I can talk to that represents me. And I want to go back to my grandmother or my mom or my sister. I want to go to somebody that can really represent me.
I think if I had something to say on that one, just let's kill a narrative in terms of who can truly help you. So like if we go back to the initial question is, why is it that as our culture and community that we do not seek that mental health and have that negative stereotype? One, it's just getting through the door to figure out why don't we open up. So I think it really starts at home in terms of, we got our kids today, like every one of us is we grab our kids, we put through that situation. Like if you don't have kids, you have to realize and understand that their mentors, the people that we encounter and we come across, they just, to me as well, are just as good as those as a support system. But we often feel like we'll be judged if we, sit on a couch or if I unload too much. So I think us teaching our kids on how to, find your appropriate channels and connections of friends and family members. Who you're going to tell information to. You can trust and try. And we do that when we teach them life skills and survival tips. Like, don't go with this friend, choose that friend. Well, choose that friend that you can confide in, because really, at every point, we'll be able to pick up the phone and call each other. So we are our own form of counselors and therapists to each other. But one thing when I do in my mental health workshops, I really sit with the kids and I tell them, let's break down the stereotype of mental health. What is mental health? Like, mental is a positive. These are actually 2 positive words. Mental and health has no negative connotation until you assign it to it. And when you talk about health being positive, you want to keep that moving forward. You want to do things to make yourself healthy. Mental part of it is us literally breaking down that understanding that your brain is controlling everything that you do from head to toe. And so just addressing it and speaking to the youth, if they're not getting it at home, to understand there's nothing wrong with going to go seek an outside source that you trust, that you can elicit your thoughts and your feelings too. Because realistically, some of our closest, just like all of us on this panel, regardless of degrees or not, we were doing this before we had our pieces of paper. Like, and that's just we know that the world makes you have this piece for us to earn, for us to be credible. Literally, we had to go get that piece of paper to tell us like, hey, we got to go do this. So realistically, from my standpoint, that's where it's just knowing what your surroundings are, what you're going to have. If you get in a fight, you're going to pick up what you have around you. So just imagine if you're in survival mode, you need to pick up who you have around you to go to and pull on. That's what's necessary.
Go ahead, Al.
Can't hear you.
Mute.
It'll be quick, just to bring it in. So when I worked in a community mental health, in an inpatient subacute mental health facility, part of my role was discharging clients back in the community and connecting them with wraparound services. And the theme that I saw in Black families was when I would talk to, whether it be grandma, aunt, mom, dad, or just whoever's taking care of them, when I would refer them to therapy as a follow-up service, they would then say, I'm not going to take them there because how are they don't help my son. This is not built to help my son. The mental health system, although it has great literature, what it is, it's built to medicate and to control my son. So I refused to sit him down. And again, culture came into play with somebody that they cannot identify with or find any commonality with, to then begin to open up enough so we can engage them to get the help that they need. Right. Can you see
that? That's what I was saying.
Right. And right. And we've all, you know, the conversation has touched on every point within that example. And that was a big turn that I'd always, I mean, it almost came up as if they all knew each other. And these are strange families, you know, families that didn't know each other from Adam. But they all would say, my son is not going to go, or my daughter or my loved one is not going to go sit down and talk to anybody because, one, they're already coming out of a mental health facility. So they've already been labeled. Two, the fact that they have this label, now they are diagnosed with something that is only going to guide the conversation to bring them through that revolving door of, you're crazy already. You've been labeled, you're on medication. We're going to stick to this plan until you get it together and follow our plan. So the belief in the system within the Black community is so torn that the stigma is, this is not built for us. This is not something that was put in place that if I go sit down and open up what I'm doing, I'm becoming vulnerable for you then to have points to attack and oppress me. And I think that's what, just in my experience, that's the stigma, to where the lack of education and really seeking out more Black therapists and mental health professionals to speak up, to say, let's educate our community on becoming mental health advocates, on understanding those things. So that, you know, as everybody's touched, those are just some real life examples that I would deal with in trying to educate them on, this is actually, when you go sit down, go with them and be an advocate for them. And you start to explain what they need and how they're reacting to certain medications or treatment plans that they're given. So you can begin to work that program so it becomes beneficial to your loved one.
I feel like there's also like a huge amount of distrust too, right? Like, I know we could go days and on for days about the lack of distrust between police and the community, right? Especially the Black community. But I feel like even within the Black community, there's also a lack of trust for, you know, somewhat for therapists too, right? Like, I don't want to expose too much about myself, like, or not knowing what you can and can't say sometimes in a therapy session. Or if they're attached to your job, I'm not about to tell this therapist these things. They've been working with this department or with this company longer than I've been there. What if this hurts my chances at some point in time of, you know, growing and things like that within the job? I feel like those are some things that we have stigmas about that aren't necessarily true, but I feel like people feel that way. You know, like, there's a lack of trust for how much confidentiality you actually have with your therapist. And I think it's a stigma that we have to break down because, you know, there is confidentiality you have when you're going to see a therapist. It's just people sometimes don't necessarily believe or think that.
You know what I was gonna say, you know, so you guys know I've been practicing since 2007. And I think one of the things that I've consistently seen as a therapist is just our understanding of what therapy is. I think for the most part, when I have people come into my office and I say, hey, have you seen a therapist before? A lot of them say, to be honest, particularly, you know, if they're Black, they say, hey, you know what? I don't even really know what therapy is. You know, hey, give me a better understanding of what this is. Like, what's supposed to happen here? And I think, you know, when you think about healthcare is not introduced to us the same way that, you know, our physical health or our dental health is, right? So as a kid, we're used to going to the doctors and getting shots and them touching us. And, you know, if you're a professional athlete or just an athlete in general, you've had physicals. So you've been to the doctor, you know, dozens and dozens of times throughout your life. Before you're even 18, you've been in the doctor at least 3 or 4 times a year. You've been to the dentist at least twice a year, right? So you don't go to the therapist until something happens. And I think that's where the problem lies, is that we're introduced to therapy only in situations of crisis or only in situations when something has gone wrong, instead of making therapy part of the same routine that we do everything else in health. You know, recognizing that if you introduce something to someone that is healthy early in life, they will continue to engage in those healthy behaviors because they don't think it's abnormal. They think it's normal to do. People really don't understand. And Pat brought up a good point, like recognizing and understand that everything that you do from your head to your toe is geared by your mental health. So your mental health is essentially how you process information and how that information causes you to behave. And if you're not dealing with your mental health, then that means you could be literally walking around this world seeing things wrong because you're seeing it through the lenses of your past experiences and your previous hurt and your previous situations instead of what's going on in front of you right now.
So I wanted to add that you guys said something that's big. All the mental health individuals that work on here, Pat, Alex, and Dewan, and even Jeff touched on this. Starting at a young age, yes, you go to the doctors because you got to get certain shots to get in school, and you do play a sport. But all the times as a young age, when you heard of any type of mental health or any type of outside of doctor visits, it was always negative. Like, oh, he got to go see the therapist in school because he has a behavioral issue, or he got to go do this during school time because he don't know how to speak well. So anytime you think of anything outside of medical, you're like, oh, it's because I have a problem.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, like if you're not introduced to it in a positive manner where your family's telling you, no, we go to a therapist just to really talk out, our feelings or whatever have you. As you grow up, it's like, I don't want to walk into an office that's not the doctor's office because that means I have an issue.
Yes.
So in that case, again, systematically, we are taught like, hey, if you got an issue, that's when you go see somebody. Not because you want to work through something, it's because you have an issue. And I think that's why you find a lot of African-American males like, man, I'm not going to no therapist because I don't have an issue. I have a challenge, but I don't have an issue that I need to work through.
It's crazy, right? Because if we are the community that is constantly being threatened, if we are the community that's constantly having resources taken away, if we're the community that's constantly witnessing violence, one-parent homes, things of that nature, then it's hard for me to say that, hey, as a Black person, you've never been through anything. There's this thing that we do. It's called the ACEs, Adversive Childhood Experiences, right? And the ACEs score has 10 questions, and it asks you, have you ever been sexually abused, physically assaulted? Have you ever had a parent been locked up in jail? Have you ever been hit, touched, or bruised? Have you ever had somebody yell, holler, scream at you, etc., right? And so when we look at African Americans, when I come in my office and I see a Black person that has nothing on that list, I want to know why. I'm like, man, this person has to be. Look, they're either lying, or maybe they were raised in a bubble. Because for me, I'm thinking that most African Americans, they're gonna have at least 3 or 4 of those things. And our ACEs, the score kind of determines our level of distress, the things that we've experienced in our trauma. I think for me, and it's crazy when I think back on it, because my first introduction to counseling was when I was in high school. Y'all know I used to get in a lot of little trouble and do a lot of little stupid stuff. So we had this dean named Mr. Hill. And Mr. Hill said to me one day, hey, Dewan, I want you to talk to this lady. She's a counselor. And I was like, man, I ain't talking to no counselor. I ain't talking to this lady. Well, it ended up happening to where at the end of the school year, I ended up starting to work with that lady. And then when we came back for our senior year, that lady started doing groups where she was just pulling different students in, and we were able to talk about whatever was going on, right? And so I was able to talk about the things that I've experienced, being shot at, having guns pointed on me, things that I witnessed in my home. I was able to talk about all those things in that environment, and being fearful of, hey, these kids gonna try to jump on me. Hey, I just got in a fight with the Samoans downtown. Like, they may be coming up to the school. I was able to talk about those things that I was worried about, that I couldn't really say to anybody else because I don't want to seem like a punk, right? And so I think that we have to recognize like the importance that our mental health is, but recognizing that, hey, we just got to find somebody to talk to. You guys talked about a lot of times we don't want to go and talk to somebody who doesn't look like us. Just because a person doesn't look like us doesn't mean they can't help us. Just because a person doesn't look like us doesn't mean that they don't have our experiences. But I understand that, right? It is harder to find African-American therapists, but they exist. We have to do a better job of giving therapy a chance, because without our mental health, without us having a healthy mind, we're going to make a lot of unhealthy decisions.
Right. Go ahead, Pat. My bad.
I was just about to say, to go back to the point that Parrish made kind of earlier. and this just to kind of like, because the same thing as a man and as a male in this, we like a black male specifically, when we're trying to figure out, and like I'm not gonna spill my beans to a female therapist. I want to kind of like to get to others to reach in and think about that, you know, because they are maybe thinking that same way, but we got to debunk that narrative. The thing is, specifically, if you can find even a black female who's in this profession, they may have a better understanding than a white person, but it's still trying to just kill that narrative of like, let's just get you in the door. Like, and I see my kids and I tell them, like, you asked Dewan earlier, like, have you ever seen a therapist before or somebody just to sit down and talk to your counselor, your guide, anybody? And they're like, nah, what would I see one of them for? And it's like, nah, let me tell you why. I personally have been the one. I'm my friends, my family. I got into this field. So it's just like, we do a lot of modeling. And through our modeling, they watch our actions like that. Everything that we do. So we gotta, I mean, let's not, you know, it's just a different audience that may think like, well, see, you know what? That's why I really don't put that out there to those people, because they may not want to hear from me anyway. But just until our mamas are the first ones half of us speak to talk to first. Sure. So I know my mama heard my blood, sweat, and tears, you feel me, over and over before I sit with a therapist. So it's just letting that, I don't care who I'm sitting in front of when I need to get out what I need to get out. And then it's like, yeah, that white person or that female may not understand, but at the end of the day, I got it all for me. And I really don't expect you to come back with an answer for me when I'm talking to them. We need it. I mean, it's not that environment. You just here to listen. So just let
and Pat, and that's an important aspect is sometimes people think that they're going to go and talk to that therapist and that therapist is going to give them a lot of answers. Sometimes that therapist is just guiding you and being vulnerable, right? So allowing yourself to keep it real with yourself about what you're experiencing, like how do you feel, right? I mean, again, you sitting in front of a therapist and the therapist they just sit back and they're listening to you. When have you been able to sit and just talk for 50 minutes and a person just listen to whatever you got to say, right? And they don't judge you. You know, particularly you start talking about the issues you dealt with in relationships, the issues you dealt with your upbringing, the things you're witnessing at work. There's so much of our stress and problems that we have as adults have to do with work. But people don't really complain about that because they feel like, hey, if I'm complaining, with black people, we're so humble that we feel like we got to be grateful for everything. So if I'm complaining about work, then I'm blocking my blessing. When the reality is, no, that's stressful. So let's actually talk about this, right? Let's talk about this. One of our brothers in here is in one of the top 5 most stressful jobs in the United States of America as a police officer, right? So if he can't talk about that job to anyone, then what's going to happen is that stress becomes a weight, like in a backpack. It just compounds to get heavier and heavier and heavier.
No, go ahead, Tab. Y'all keep coming in. I'm gonna kick y'all butt.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, I was gonna say the thing I do most importantly when first getting to know clients is letting them know, like, hey, what we talk about here is just between us, and I'm not no different from you. I got problems just like you. I go through stress just like you. I do all those things just like you. I am no different. So we try to normalize it. Also, what I have clients think about is you have a problem, you're not the problem. So externalizing that problem, right? You have maybe with somebody getting divorced, I see couples a lot. Your marriage failed, but you're not a failure. So you have to externalize that problem. You might have had an issue, but you're not the issue. So we got to get away from that stigma, like I am the issue. No, I just got a problem with this or that. It's not that you're less than. So we got to get that out of there, as well as therapist is not. Alex talked about this before. It's like this plan. If a therapist is giving you this one size fits all type of deal, that's not a good therapist because they shouldn't be giving you the same treatment, the same kind of information as somebody else because we're nothing alike. They should be curtailing the therapy to fit for you. So if that's a good therapist, they're going to make it work for you.
So I mean, I know you talked a little bit about being in one of the top 5 most stressful jobs in America, and I'll just give a snapshot of what my past 2 weeks look like. Working in this type of field, you know that people are going to pass away and die. You may have to deal with people who've committed suicide and all of those things, right? But in between, in a 2-week period, I saw 3 people. I was at work in a time frame where 3 people committed suicide. A fourth one attempted, but they ended up surviving, which was good for them. I had 2 people that I know die from COVID. I had another person that I knew in Vallejo that I went to the gym. His son was brutally murdered. I literally, like, I'm probably missing somebody. 10 people that I know died within a 2-week period. So when at work, I'm, conditioned to do this job and endure and deal through and work with suicides. That's not necessarily something that's going to stress me out. But the weight of all of those people passing in a 2-week period started to affect me, or even the point of the people that I didn't know. I wasn't even on some of these calls where people were committing suicide. That literally started to affect me too. I'm starting to feel like, as a police officer, I'm actually a soldier, in infantry, or a Marine, like, doing infantry, and there are nothing but bodies just stacking all around. So for me, that became really stressful. And then I had a situation that, was kind of wild and kind of crazy. Can't talk too much about it till the statute of limitations are up. I didn't commit no crime or nothing like that, for the record. But the whole point is that when those type of things happen and you get stressed out, I'm dealing with work stuff. I'm dealing with people, I'm driving home and something crazy happens to me. All of these things start stacking up, and I'm supposed to remain professional. I'm somebody's father. I'm somebody's husband. Bro, I started getting to a breaking point where things started getting crazy. And then I think the last thing that I want to know too is that even us just talking about what happened in Kenosha, right? People come to me when things happen in law enforcement, when there are deaths that happen between African Americans and there are police involved shootings and stuff like that, right? I'm a representation of the Black community first as a police officer. And I have to be able to look my peers in the eyes, look y'all in the eyes, look people in the eyes when they ask me these questions and give them real answers. I can't give them a real answer about things like that that's happening no more. It weighs too much, and the internet will show them that if I try to bullshit them, that I'm a liar. And I truly believe that in this America I live in today, that there are 2 use of force policies. One that applies to African Americans and ones that apply to everyone else. And I know that might be controversial to the people in my field and the people that I work with. It's no reflection on my department. Luckily for me, I work for a really good department, but that's the America that we live in. When you go look on YouTube and different things like that, you see that, and it's like, this is the America that we live in. And I have to be able to represent that, wear that on my back, and also still represent y'all. That's stressful to me. It's enough for me to have a Nipsey Hussle red carpet moment where somebody getting the shit slapped out of them because I can't, it's too much stress. Somebody's going to catch the bad end of that, but I got a responsibility and a family to take care of.
Real quick, Ted, or Jacoby, you said something real important that I think.
Oh, we passed that point. I'm off probation. Go ahead, talk your shit.
Like I want to present something because you said something that just made me think. As you sat here and you expressed how mentally strained you are and how stressed you are, and the experiences like death you've seen in 2 weeks. That's an astronomical number. 10 people in 2 weeks. That's basically, a person a day, damn, basically. And you got to think about it. On the flip side, the community has to then wonder how important in law enforcement is mental health, because if you're that stressed out and you're weighed that heavy, the community thinks, well, if your mental health is toe up and my mental health is toe up, how are you really, honestly, how are you expected to effectively do your job if in law enforcement mental health isn't put first? In law enforcement, your stability and your level of being relaxed, because we see so many people getting killed, and you hear these officers on their body cam and they sound spooked. And half of it is, they weren't conditioned to be in the area or city they worked in. But if you think about it, the other half is maybe their mental health has been so tried and pressed that they're reacting out of being burnt out for the things they're dealing with on a daily basis. But from a community standpoint, it makes me fearful to say, when you go to your job and they put you in training, instead of teaching you how to kill somebody first, are they teaching you how to condition your mind first? Are they teaching you how to take care of yourself first? Are they teaching you how to be a human first? Are they teaching you how to tactfully de-escalate a situation first? And from knowing people in law enforcement, that's the last thing that's being really taught. The first thing you get taught is how to use your firearm. The first thing is taught how to fight. The first thing is taught how to protect yourself. and then serve a community, and then worry about your mental health, which makes the community fearful of, even when I don't care. I got partners that, people that's confident. When I see the police, I ain't done nothing wrong, but it always be like, I hope this fool don't get behind me. And I even got my card. I know my rights. So if they come into my window, you getting cracked like I'm online again, crack window. What you need, what you want, leave me alone. Get about your business because I didn't do anything. And even like when I moved out to the area I live in, I got pulled over and my address still said Oakland. And the cop gonna ask me, why are you even out here?
But see, that's where it's at right there. It's kind of what you're saying. It's like, that's a good example of what my mental health looks like. I have to come back now, and this is a conversation me and you would have on camera, off camera. It's not really a difference to me, but I have to articulate myself and answer those questions. I have to keep in mind my profession, keep in mind myself, and that I'm a representation of the police department.
Right.
First and foremost, before we go into it, I don't feel that we are taught to just, use our use of force first. But the justification and how I have to articulate myself to even have that type of common ground and conversation with you, that shit is mentally draining. You know what I'm saying? Because y'all know me. You know what I'm saying? Shot at, fights, guns. I've been around all that stuff before I was even a police officer. So the whole thing is kind of like, when you think about things like that, you guys know that I'm well-rounded. I'm not the officer you fear when you see me at work. But think about the fact that there's a whole bunch of people out there that have that type of perception. And I have to go in and break that down every time. That does become mentally draining, just to have to be that portion of representation for the community. Now think about
how important is mental health. You know what I mean? It's almost a concern.
It's very important, but at the same time, like I'm saying, I keep that in the forefront of my mind when I'm at work. You know what I'm saying? Like that's something I'm gonna keep. I keep that in front of my mind when I'm at work, because there's too many situations around us that make people feel like, well, man, how good was that officer's mental health? Mine ain't necessarily in the best state, but it's in the working state. I can work and do what I'm doing, but I have to keep that in the forefront of my mind. I have to actively work at that, and I use my resources to do it.
Tad, and I'm gonna say this about what I truly believe, man. A black person in any profession is probably the most well-experienced person, because we have been taught as black people, we study white people and everybody else down below.
Code switching, man. Code switching.
Yeah. We code switch. I don't even call it code switch, because realistically, these are survival techniques.
True. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. I can navigate neighborhoods within the same community. You feel me? Going from the south, going through the crescents. I can slide through the north. I can go everywhere in Richmond, and I have a different personality or how I'm gonna walk and think all within my same city.
Yeah.
When we take that into a different community, and when I say black police officers, man, you have a different skill set, because you are taught based on life to study people. You are a natural sociologist because you have studied people's mannerisms, the argument, the conversation, the way I'm moving my hands right now. This doesn't fear you. When I talked to the police chief of Orinda recently on a panel interview with the police chief of Orinda, the mayor, and the city manager of Orinda, and I asked him one question. I asked him specifically, what type of diversity training are you eliciting to go with this mental health component? Because when you pull me over, when you pull another black person over, you got to understand that, one, it's an inconvenience. It's not always that I'm riding dirty. It's an inconvenience. You stop me, so I'm upset because I'm being stopped, just like any natural human would if you impede their progress. What I'm noting is, and what I asked him and why his response was like, well, we have these online trainings. See, these online trainings are not going to give you the game that we're giving you right now. This platform is free game because you got 6 different mind frames that's built to last and survive life first. Then to educate, educate ourselves, then to give off information to everybody else. This is something. I mean, we got 6 of the best men in the world right now, just based on what we have learned to make it to where we need to make it to pass down information. But when I know my fear of police, I done been in every one of them situations, but every time I always have to remain calm, keep my hands present. When you see white people pop out the car, go crazy. So I don't have that problem talking to you about it, but I just want you to know that you know, you one of the most well-versed just based on your skin tone and your complexion and the things you had to endure to get to where you need to get to in life.
I
You know,
appreciate it.
Pete, Pat, I think that's important. And I think it's important because what you're talking about is like who we are in our upbringing and how our upbringing has given us the natural skills to be resilient. But I think sometimes that's the problem is that, you know, we walk around with this on, right? We walk around every day with a mask on. Y'all remember the movie The Mask with Jim Carrey? Now, when he was just his regular version of himself, he wasn't nobody, he wasn't cool.
That
But when he
boy
put the
was
mask on, he was able to be everything that he wanted to be. And I think sometimes the problem is in our community, we're always wearing that mask to where we get so far away from who we actually are because we're constantly presenting ourselves in a way that we will want people to believe about us. We're leading with our ego instead of who we are. You know, you guys know in 2004, I had a daughter out of high school, and then in 2004 she passed. And I remember, you know, that being one of the hardest things I ever went through, right? Sitting in the hospital for a week, arguing with these doctors, watching these doctors neglect my daughter, not taking care of her. You can tell she got dried up, you know, tears around her eyes, which shows ain't no nurse been in there to wipe her face. You know, just in there in a battle with them about taking her off life support, not taking her off life support. So then that happens. My daughter dies. You know, I'm sitting at home watching everybody go crazy. I said, damn this, I'm going back to college. I go back to college. I'm every day in my room crying, boo-hoo crying, bro. But you know what happens? Somebody knock on that door. Hey, Juan, let's go eat. What's good, y'all? Let's go. You know, I'm putting on a mask every day, right? So instead of me being able to sit down and tell my boys, like, hey, y'all, you know, I'm about to go up here and talk to the school counselor, I'm hiding that. Because again, I don't want to seem weak. I'm hiding that I'm in the back seat crying when we're on the way to the club because I don't want to seem weak. When the reality is, I just lost a kid, bro. I just sat in the hospital and watched my kid pass. As a man, as a father, and was totally helpless. I should have had a struggle, but again, we were taught as men that we are not to speak on these things. We are taught that we're not supposed to say anything. So then, what ends up happening is we look for distractions, right? Easy. You know, up to that point in my life, I had never tried any drug. That semester, I started smoking weed. You know, and you know when you're a new weed smoker, you go into class loud and everything. I'm a new weed smoker. I don't know how to smoke weed. You know, so I'm going to class, smelling like weed, trying to take quizzes. Now the only good thing was the whole school was aware of what happened, so my teachers knew my circumstances, so they gave me the benefit of the doubt. But not only did I jeopardize my opportunity in college because my behaviors became reckless, I looked for things to distract my behaviors. And that's what we do as men. We find distractions, right? So it's either drugs,
women's
alcohol,
Yeah.
women, or gambling.
Yeah.
More, right? We find things to distract us from actually dealing with our problems. And I started to realize, like, over the years while I was in college, I was taking out my hurt on women because, oh, hold on, I already have my heart broke. I'll be damned if I'm gonna let a female come around here and break my heart. So what ends up happening, as soon as I start liking the girl, as soon as I realize I like her, and she do one little thing to disappoint me. She tell me she gonna call me and don't call me back. Cut.
Yeah.
Right? Because I was so protective of my heart and being hurt. And I think the reality is, had I not gotten counseling through that, I wouldn't be able to be at a space where I can really advocate for myself and advocate for others. And I think that's why mental health is so important, because if we're not recognizing how our actions and our unwillingness to go deal with our issues is affecting other people, that's what the problem becomes. There's so many people right now who are highly successful, highly professional, but when it comes to their individual mental health and how they see things, and they're pessimistic, whether they're pessimistic, they don't have, close circles, or again, they're just living in a world where they have to be right. Everything's very generalized. Everything's very binary. Everything is about me, me, me. People have to realize that until we deal with our mental health, we're going to continue to have those struggles throughout our lives.
Did you just describe Kanye?
Right? But Pat, that could be a reaction, right? That trauma, PTSD. What happens when somebody close to you dies? Do you snap? Do the person that you felt most comfortable with? We all love our parents. We all confide in our moms. right? So what happens when you don't have that person that you've always been open to and they're gone? That's why mental health is so important, because if that pastor that you normally talk to, if they pass or they leave the church, if your parents pass and your cousin, you always know that there's a new counselor that you can go and talk to. And yeah, it may take time to build the relationship. For us, counseling is about the relationship. We don't care what you dress like. We don't care how many degrees you got. Yeah. As Black people, we care about the relationship. Can I talk to you? Do you cool? Do I got to explain everything to you? Right? To where white people is a little different. They care about the degrees on the wall. They care about how professional you are. So we got to start to make sure that we're available as therapists for our people as well as others.
Yeah. Yeah, DeJuan spoke about some important things. He recognized now that he's older, all of the stuff that he was doing to freaking, I would say, even cope, survive. Try to cope. Right. He was trying to, right? He was trying to find some coping skills which weren't the greatest, and which we all do. We all do a lot of that as younger people, or people that don't know the coping skills. Okay, I'm gonna go smash a gang of women. I'm gonna go spend all this money that I don't got, and be like, damn, when I spend all this money, I gotta pay my rent. Or I'm gonna go do all these things that are impulsive that I'm gonna end up regretting, or I can lose my life, or whatever it is, your livelihood, or whatever it is, because we don't have the coping skills. So what we got to develop, and what we have developed as Black people, because we're resilient as hell, has developed some coping skills, but they're not the greatest. So when you go see your therapist and you're gonna talk about your resiliency and your self-strength, then you're gonna start learning, like, how did I cope with that? What was a good way to cope with it? Did I go running? Did I go talk to my partners? Did I go tell my girl? Did I go cry on the couch? Or did I just cry all night? Whatever it was, you gotta find the good ones. Like when my brother passed away last year, unexpectedly had a heart condition, D1 athlete at Cal Berkeley, great kid, no signs of anything. My world just stopped. Like, what the fuck? Like this dude out of all the people in the world passed away. A Division I athlete died because of an issue with his body. It makes no sense to me, right? So I'm questioning God. I'm questioning, like, what in the world is going on, right? So I'm like, he said, he crying every day, whatever. But the only way I can get through that is my family, my unit, my community. Talking to people, they checking up on me. Jeff, how you doing? They pull up on me at the hospital. They fly down to LA to come see me. So all those different things was important to me to see, like, I'm not dealing with this by myself. I didn't just lose somebody, they lost somebody too. And when we gonna figure this out together. And that's what you can do with therapy. Even if your community's not that strong, even if it is, the therapist is just another support to help you get through things when you're going through them. And it's not easy. It's a challenge. And my job as a therapist too is to challenge you. I'm not gonna always be on your side. I'm gonna ask you counteractive or counterproductive things to make you see or think about what you're doing or what you're saying. But therapy is a great support. And that's what we try to be, as a support.
Yeah, and that's kind of, both of you guys segued into something that I wanted to talk about too. We talked about being younger and kind of the womanizing that goes along with some of the trauma that we've been through, whether it's been, whatever it causes that. Now when it's, we're dealing with women, our heart is closed off to them, like it's almost like they got to pledge, or they got to earn it, or they got to go through hell to get it, because as a womanizer now, you're going to go through some shit messing with me because I'm just not in a good space to be able to accept or receive that. So it's going to be, hell, just getting to that point. Another thing that I wanted to kind of mention too, and what we were talking about, is we got to start looking at how that also affects our people in the hood. Like you were talking about how people just go around spending money, money that they don't have, or different things like that. It's a lot of people that we know that live in the hood that'll literally take that situation and spend money like it's their last, like they just don't see it through, where it's like, dang, I can do more, I can do better, I can do this and that. They just kind of feel left on an island by themselves. And I think that's a lot of trauma related. It's a lot of people out there to do that because they're like, damn, I ain't even going to live to see next week. So why wouldn't I bust down this whole 25 bands I just made out here off this lick? I'm not going to be here next week. So let me go ahead and start shining and doing what they do. And I mean, that's real things though. So it's kind of like, while we talking about all these things from our professional standpoint, I just want to, think about or kind of figure out what we can do to help out the people that aren't necessarily in the same.
But that's the barbershop talk though, right, Tab? Ain't that the barbershop talk? They got to go get cut, they go get clean, they go to the whatever. It's the barbershop talk.
I mean, yeah, I would say that, but I mean, I think we having conversations in our barbershops, but is we really having that, right? Like sometimes dope boys is walking in, everybody don't feel comfortable having that conversation with everybody because some people got enough pent up trauma where it's like, I ain't trying to hear nothing nobody saying. I start set tripping today, and that's a whole nother thing. I don't know if I've ever went into that deeply with somebody.
But I think it's about asking the right questions too, and having the right conversation, you know, if you talk to the shop talk, when you go to Barbershop, you know, it's people from all walks of life coming in, and it's really just striking up a conversation as easy as you start talking about sports or what you feel about who better, Jordan, Kobe, or Bron. That spark of conversation. It could be your most hoodest D-boy that got a 10, 15 bodies on him and bands all on the car. He gonna weigh in on his opinion, but it's about asking that question of how y'all doing. You know,
but I think
mm-hmm.
I think we got to be mindful though, and I think having those conversations at the barbershop with our pastors at church, being able to talk to somebody is better than not talking to anyone. But the problem is people got to trust the source and check the source, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people out here who give people horrible advice, right? And just because that person's an elder, or because, you know, they're a lawyer or a doctor, or they drive a Benz, or they got a box Chev on 24s pushing through the hood, don't necessarily mean that that's a person that you should be getting advice from. You know, I was watching The Chi. Y'all watch The Chi, right? And y'all remember the scene where Emmett got advice from his dad about the situation, what was going on with his girl? His dad gave him some horrible advice, right? Thank God Emmett had enough common sense to ignore his dad and be like, I ain't listening to you. You know, you don't know what you're talking about. Right? You know what I'm saying? Or remember when we was all sitting around the house in LA, you know, about 10 years ago. It's like, I ain't listening to the tab. Right? At that point, he like you gotta recognize, like, that's where mental health professionals come in. Like, their advice is unbiased. They don't really know you from a can of paint. They're going to look at the situation, and then they're going to give you feedback based on options. They're going to give you options like, hey, these are the things you can do. And, you know, we have to recognize that when we're talking to people and we're getting good information, you're going out getting marriage advice from somebody that didn't have been divorced 6 times. Like, that's probably not the best person to get how to stay in a marriage. That's probably the person you get advice from how what not to do. What not to do. You know what I mean?
But let me jump in on this, like, and just let's lay it out there. It's a lot of people who, you know, who are watching this or will watch this, and I think we're bringing up great things to say to go get some form of therapy. Well, how do they go get therapy? You know, let's lay it out online. The easiest way to say that is if you have some form of healthcare provider, your services are built within your plan. So just being able to access that, even if you're curious, you can email your provider or call your provider to say, hey, can I just talk about some counseling? They will see you for a referral. Your referral, they ask you a few more questions, and from that you can be put in. That's what you can say. If you have any Black male providers in my area, can you put me on a list? And then let's go into the other caveat. What if you don't have insurance? Well, realistically, if you have county care or the old school Obamacare, that is also built within. You almost have possibly 5 to 10 free visits that's also listening through your, like, Contra Costa County. If you're in this area, you have that through the county. All you have to do is sign yourself up. If you get any general aid or assistance, I'm just saying, for anybody who has it, this is your avenue and your opening way to be able to get out there and get those communities. If you're in college right now listening, your school has a site for somebody to reach out to. You need the support and services. You can go and talk to any one of them and bring it up to their community, bring it up in those environments, and you know, to be able to reach all your avenues. You network about everything else, but we'll never network about how to handle your mental health.
And then another thing too, I mean, because I just want to take it from since I'm not a therapist standpoint, is people out there. I've went to a therapist before for marriage counseling. I've been to a therapist for individual counseling. It's just like a barber. Sometimes they might not work, but you still gonna need that haircut. So if you find that your mental health therapist that you have is somebody you do not like or you don't feel like it's helping you, don't give up on it. Try to find someone that is better fitting for you. You know, like, you may have to go through a couple of different people in order to find the person that you really like, that you feel is someone you could feel comfortable talking to. Just remember that it might not be the first person you see is the person that you're going to stick with. Be willing to go see other people, especially if you realize that you could use therapy as a way to get better in different situations in your life.
I think that's perfect, because you guys are really talking about, like, a lot of people don't know that if you have health insurance, you have counseling already. Counseling is already built into your health insurance the same way that dental is, the same way that your physical health is. I think utilizing those services and utilizing, if you're on a university campus, utilizing your university counseling center. I mean, if you're in high school, you know, your high school has a counselor, right? You know, you can go see Pat. You know, he'll pull up on your classroom and pull you out. So, you know, you're on a college campus, you can go see Al, right? You know, if you want to see somebody privately, you can come see me or Jeff, right? I think recognizing that those services are there. Whether you Google psychology today and you search, I want to talk to a black male therapist, a black female therapist, a white male, whatever. You can refine that in your search. There's another website, therapyforblackgirls.com, therapyforblackmen.com. There's so many websites that can direct you to therapists that are in your area. You just got to use Google. And I think sometimes, like Tab said, it's finding the right fit. You know, if you have a negative experience with your first therapist, that's just okay. Don't give up on therapists, because then you're giving up on your health care. You're giving up on your health. So find somebody that's going to be a good fit for you. You ain't got to go every week. You can go whenever you want to. But once you establish that relationship with that person, you have a better understanding. But I think as black men in general, as leaders, we have to start modeling certain behaviors. For me personally, when my son gets about 8 years old, we're going to find him a therapist. You know, not because something is going wrong, but to be proactive, to where if something happens, he has this person that he can talk to. And he'll know that therapy is very normal in his life. Not just that his dad's a therapist, that he has somebody that he can go talk to. And dad don't ask, hey, I'm not going to ask the therapist, what did my son say? My son go in there and tell him, my daddy is ashy, get on my nerves, and I hate him. That's what he needs to say to get it off his chest. So then he can come home and follow the rules and do right. You allow him to have that avenue. And that's another thing. Your therapist cannot tell anyone your business. HIPAA laws protect you from that. So if your therapist is telling your business, that's cool. They got $1 million insurance policy that you can get some of that. So they want to tell you business, you see your doctor. So always recognize that those resources are available.
Yeah, and the Bay. Go ahead.
Yeah, and really, anybody in the Bay, like old school 411, they got 211, where that's like the information highway for mental health services and beyond. And really, it's understanding what to say when you get somebody on the phone, because of course, on the county level, navigating those resources, people feel impossible. I can never get through. I don't know what to say when I get them on the phone, and it's really being specific about what you need. So knowing what you need. I need a therapist to deal with what? What are you going through? Whether it's, I'm depressed, I got anxiety, or I need to generally speak to a therapist about the problems I'm dealing with, and be specific about your area, what you're looking for, the cost-wise, all those things. Then they can navigate you quickly to assistance, but it's free. And then if you're whatever county you're in, every county has a free crisis hotline that you can call 24 hours a day. And if you say, you know what, I'm experiencing just a mental health episode and I need to talk to somebody, I'm not in danger, but I just need to talk to someone, they will get you connected to an intake person right there, so you can at least get on file. And most every county, I know Alameda County, Contra Costa County, Solano County, all the counties have these, and they're very simple to find for this information. But again, if you dial 211 from your phone, your house phone, whatever, again, that's like the information highway to resources, period. That a lot of people don't know about, or if they know about, they just don't know how to navigate that system, because it is a highly used system. But once you get through, it can give you access to sliding scale stuff, free stuff that you would not know about just regularly going throughout your day.
DeJuan, when you spoke on something, I've said this. I'm actually on a panel for Improve Your Tomorrow, their wellness board, right? And they kind of asked, like, what are some of the things that you look at? So to self-disclose, like I seen a therapist when I was like 12, for the first time, 12 or 13. You deal with parent issues, divorce, and then what tragically hit was my grandmother passed away at that age, right? And that's your first real loss. And so for me, that was my first loss. Behavior acted up erratically. My mom, like, you know what? I can't really control you. This is my last bet. Let me find. So she did a little search. It wasn't Google back in the day. She networked and found, you feel me?
AOL.
Right. Whatever they use, he found it. She put me on with a black male therapist, right? And through play therapy, he really worked. Like, he put Sega Genesis and Nintendo in front of me and PlayStation. We had none of that in my house growing up. It's just street life. You feel me? We out playing. So I'm playing the game, not even really know how to play, and he's asking me these questions to teach me how to communicate, teach a young black man how to communicate and say what's wrong. And by the end of my journey, in a sense, I can't even tell you when it was, but it was like moving a cloud from the top of my head and being able to say whatever I needed to say during that time frame. So what I say, why is it that when our kids go to, when they start as early as our 6-month checkup or 0 to 3, 6 month, 1 year, 2 year, they got checkups every year. Why is it not at some point specifically for black, male, female, LGBTQ plus? This needs to happen, that they sit with the therapist. And for any parents that's on this board, to just put them in front of somebody, let them talk to somebody other than you that can just maybe either give them advice and or just to listen and let them vent. That should be written in at maybe 8 is a great number. You feel me? Like for you, Dewan, maybe 8 is that number, because then they can conceive and put together their thoughts and their attention span. Start them off 15-minute, 30-minute sessions, because then it will build. And for my biggest goal is to make sure that we're not holding all that ACEs study. By the time they get to that point, of a brink or a break, that somebody is actually doing that study with them at a certain point, it's almost like, ooh.
Yeah.
It's almost too late at some points. Let's debunk that narrative, get that weight off of them, because you're carrying trauma that you don't even know that you're carrying. We're talking about epigenetics. We're talking about passed down slavery decision that's built within our DNA that we don't even understand. And the counterpart of it is white folks got the same DNA, and that's the trauma that you evoke onto others. You carry that too. And I want to talk about that maybe at a later show or session. But I'm telling you,
I think we're gonna have a part 2 on this in general, because I think there's so much that we need to discuss in regards to mental health. But I think, Pat, that's really important, is introducing our children to therapy as a normal thing. I think that, as adults, there are certain industries where they should always have therapists on hand. I do a lot of work with the police departments out here and a lot of work with officers, but I also think that some of these police departments need to have therapists housed within the police, within the departments. I think, fire department, I think, some hospitals are now having therapists housed within the hospitals to deal with the doctors, particularly those ER doctors. Some of my clients who are ER doctors, man, look, the stuff that they have to deal with, constantly being in a state of hypervigilance, constantly trying to figure out what's going on, what's wrong, what's the problem, right? Dealing with trauma, loss, death. Man, think about what that does to the average person's mind. So I think recognizing that if we introduce these services early in school and we make this a normal thing, that, hey, today is Friday, everybody, we're going to go, today is therapy day. Everybody gets their 15 minutes with the therapist, right? Just rotation to where kids get comfortable with doing it. You'll see how that helps. You spoke on play therapy and what that looks like. Like, sometimes play therapy is your therapist going out and getting the basketball and shooting hoops with your kid while they talk.
Yeah.
Right? Right. Sometimes it's coming to the office and playing a video game. In my office in Oklahoma City, we used to have an Xbox in the game room where we would go in there to kids and talk with them. Sometimes it may be even different. You may have a therapist that picks your kids up from home and takes them to the movies, and they're kind of engaging in theater therapy. They'll watch a movie with them and then discuss how that movie plays a role into their lives and how those experiences. As a high schooler, I seen the movie Antoine Fisher and Goodwill Hunting.
I just used that right.
And was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, recognizing, like, man, there's some parallels there, with their experiences and how they take things out. So I think introducing that as early as possible is important. And even in your area, P, looking as an educator and like in school and dealing with students and having their future in your hands, and how that can be very stressful. Like, having people within your office that are not dedicated to the students, who are dedicated to the staff, can be very helpful.
I mean, when I work with which P?
You talking about Parrish?
I think he was talking about me.
Big OGP. Okay, OGP. Okay.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there's so many aspects you guys are touching on that's just, I still question though, and to go back to our original question is, how do you get Black males to engage then with counseling, with all the stigmas that are out there and with all the ways that society engages with us negatively? It's like, no, you could go see a counselor and they feel okay with it. We're talking about people who are either in high school or in college, but a majority of the people that we're not talking about is people that don't attend none of those things. I go to work and I'm stressed, and society is pushing back on me in a negative manner. How do you encourage them to come to
right here.
a therapist? That's the part.
You got your hat on backwards. He got his hat on backwards. He got on gold chains. We know. So we have to conversation. Huh?
I teach my class on I do videos, I upload videos through I teach at CCC. I'm in my house like this. You feel me? I jumped on the Zoom chat. I'm like letting them know, like, listen, this is a conversation between me and you. When we have this is what it looks like as a new therapy. I mean, and honestly, you ask a question, P, on how do you sell it? How do you get that to them? You sell it with a pair of Jordans, personally. You sell it with what's lit, what's out there right now. You have a offer. You put us on a panel because America and this world, we teach our kids to want to shoot a jumper before we teach them a profession that's going to put money into their pocket. We do it. We love it because we're products of that environment and we're entertained by it. But best believe if they were selling Jordans with those free sessions, or not free sessions, your Jordans came with, here's your 30-minute session. You got to sit down with somebody. I guarantee the narrative changes if you put. We talk about marketing. Let's regenerate marketing and employ to basically say, some of the things that we look at in our past. How do we change that narrative? Well, we go with what's working today.
It's that, but it's like I said, it's this platform and everybody being themselves. He got his hat on backwards. I got a t-shirt on. Alex got a t-shirt on. We didn't come with a suit and a tie. This not how we do.
That's not how we are.
That's not how we are. I will put that on, but when you see me in a session, I'm just gonna be myself.
It's very intentional that we come on here and we dress like we normally dress, because I think the reality is you're going to get some guys, some Black men who get on and they got the shirt on and the tie and they're talking using a vernacular that they necessarily don't talk with on a normal basis, but they're doing it to appease or to look professional or educated, when the reality is we know you're educated because you got a degree, right?
Right.
Being yourself, I think Black people, again, are more likely, particularly men, are more likely to go into a space with another man who is himself. There's sometimes when I'm in my office and I got a full suit on. There's sometimes when I'm in my office where I got on some sweats, a pair of Yeezys, and a t-shirt. And it's really about who I'm talking to, right? Because I know sometimes that a Black man's going to come in and he see me relaxed and comfortable, he's going to be relaxed and comfortable. But if he sees me uptight, he's going to think he needs to present as uptight. I think that's what helps, is like being yourselves. Often in our community, we start making money, we start getting degrees, and we start carrying ourselves that is a lot different from actually who we are. And people, particularly in our community, especially our kids, they know when you're keeping it and when you're not keeping it real, right? They know when you fake and when you're not acting right. So I think it starts with just being genuine and recognizing who you are as a man.
And I think you said something important too earlier that I wanted to talk about, is that you talked about introducing therapy to your son at 8, right? And I'm thinking about everything we said about how we appear, what we do, what our professional resumes look like, right? And just us being our authentic self. Sometimes by the end of the day, after you've had to code switch, but also try to bring in some level of authenticity, you get home,
tired.
To give that to your children, to give that to your wife, to whoever, I'm done. So honestly, just listening to what you said and introducing therapy to my son at 8 is probably something that I'd probably do after talking and listening to what you said today, because I know that sometimes I done endured. And by the time I get home, I'm drained. So the advice that I may give my son may come from a standpoint of endure, or I might not be able to hear him well enough. So I might just give in to what he wants instead of giving him some real conversational pieces to think about. And I know people may say, well, you a parent all day, that's what you got to do. Nah, we going to stop that bullshit right now. There are days when you parent half-assed because you just don't have anything else in you to do. So if I can have someone come in and give that, then that's what I'm trying to do. I know when I get to a point where I can't do well anymore. I can't function as a person. I show my whole self, sometimes the whole ugly me, to my friends, because at this point, maybe I didn't gave my wife the hell, I didn't gave my kids hell, and the only people that I can go to and, you know, reset is through my friends. But they got to watch me have a meltdown in order to help me reset. So I'm just thinking about what you said, and I'm like, you know, that's a good idea.
That should be the plan moving forward, man. Just like
it is.
We talked about annual checkups, where the dentist, the doctor, or whatever. We got to do the annual checkups or biannual checkups with the therapist, man. Even if it's you by yourself, with you and your wife, you and your girl, whoever, and take your kids too, because they need it as well. Because I remember my mom asking me, "How was your day at school?" It was regular. That's what they're gonna tell you. It was cool. They ain't gonna tell you that I had a fight or I had this or that, or you know what I'm saying. The girl I got dumped today, or you know what I'm saying. Whatever it was, they're not gonna tell you that just because it's just norm. Like, oh, it was cool. And then your parents be like, all right, cool, because they dealing with so much stuff. Just
Bro,
like they're dealing with so much.
I remember coming in to work and watching, and there was a scene I was on at a prior department where a young man lost his life, literally got shot in the head. He's laying out there for hours. His mom's on scene crying, all of that. By the time we get done clearing this scene up, I go and eat a pizza right afterwards. Not even really tripping on what just I saw and happened to me. I get home, you know, my wife asked me, how was my day? I'm like, you know, it was work. The job is a job. Bro, at that point, I'm so far gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, who has all of that stuff happen? Just goes and eats pizza and comes home and then like, hey, what you want to do tonight? We watching Netflix and then chilling or what? Like, that's not normal.
Tav, that's you know, I found myself, you know, the more and more you work with adults, you know, you find yourself like taking on parts of their trauma. Like, you know, every day I'm listening to people tell me about the experiences of being raped, sexually assaulted. You know, 80% of my clients are women. So, you know, they're telling me about being physically abused, sexually abused. They're telling me about their struggles, the discrimination that they're having at work. And then I have to come home and then just be normal, right, for my family. Right. Recognizing I got these images sometimes in my head of other people experience. That's why I think it's so important for us to kind of have like things that we do to kind of escape or to help keep us balanced, right? Because you don't want to walk around like being dismissive or being kind of isolated from your family because you're just trying to take some time to decompress. As therapists, or for the therapists that are in the room, what are some tips that you guys have for your community and people within your community who are dealing with mental health? Give a tip that you may have for people who may be suffering from mental health currently.
Take a deep breath. I'm gonna call it whatever it is. Like half the time when either you are encountered or things kind of hit you drastically, we forget that our breath is controlling everything. Taking that deep breath is really controlling everything that we do next. Whatever your response is, it realistically is going to elicit your next motion or your movement. So taking that deep breath and allowing things to kind of see it for what it is. Like somebody step on your shoes. What do? It's like, realize if you took a moment at the wrong time in the wrong environment, that's going to mean more than anything because it's laced. It's like, oh, he trying me or she trying me. Oh, we got a problem. But realizing that, you know, certain things really, if you take a deep breath and take a step back from those moments and realize it and navigate that way of life, it's like it's not that serious. How far are you gonna go over that shoe step on? You know what I mean? So just me, if I had to say my first coping mechanism is, man, be a thinking man. A thinking man, woman, anything first is making her take a step back and then just move forward after.
I love it. Jeff, what you got?
For me, I always say talk to people, whether it be a therapist, your buddies, your mom, your dad, your whoever. Let them know. Like you have to give somebody insight into what is going on with you. So that's first and foremost. For me, that's what I feel like works for me a lot, and I tell my clients that all the time. Just talk to anybody, whether you know they're a therapist or not, because you have to get some type of release or write it down. I use journaling a lot or write letters. So it's either talk to somebody or write it down. Is one of the first things I tell people to do.
Wow.
Some things, develop a habit or lifestyle of positive self-talk. so that when things begin to happen, you have a habit of positively reaffirming yourself, reassuring yourself, and talking yourself through. I think we think as self-talk could be something that, oh, you crazy, you talk to yourself. And really positive self-talk will help you when you have these moments to where you're on the edge or you're going to lose it and you're not really in a comfortable space. If you have a habit of always being able to talk to yourself and let yourself like, you know what, I got this. Like, yeah, you know, I'm not in a good space right now, and be able to verbalize those things. As Jeff said, talk to somebody, verbalizing to yourself, to somebody else, the moment you're in, that space that you're in, becoming present within that space and being able to not get lost in the chaos of what's going on, I think is, you know, real important.
Y'all fools took all of mine, but it's all good. That's good information. But you know, I would say that, you know, all those good things, journaling, having somebody to talk to, deep breathing techniques, self-talk is really important, because learning how that you have inner thinking and learning that a lot of times that's you processing information. That's not anxiety. That's not stress. Some people don't even know their own inner voice because they're so used to the distractions that they put in their life, the drugs, the alcohol, the women, and all that. I think getting close and connected again with nature, getting outdoors, right? Finding hobbies, finding productive hobbies is important. There's so many men who don't have an actual hobby, right? Go to the club, drink, play video games, you know, mess with women, get on Instagram, all that type of stuff, right? Instead of finding out hobbies, whether you go out hiking, you take a walk, you go bike riding, you know, you go swimming, things like that, giving yourself back to nature, allowing yourself to be free of burdens. Because when you're out in the forest and you're out walking and things of that nature, they're just a relaxing feeling. You know, getting out on a boat and just going fishing, having some hobbies is going to be very important, because you need to have those things that serve as a counterbalance for when, you know, life gets heavy. We are born with stress. Life is inherited stress, right? You got bills, you got responsibilities, you got relationships, you got people dying, you got family. So we have these stressors that are piling up on this end. But what are the things we do for self-care on this end? Our self-care should be 3 to 1 from our stressors. 3 to 1. So for every one thing that's stressful in our life, we should have 3 things to counterbalance that. So we should have an abundance of self-care. So I would say make sure we have an abundance of self-care. Before we jump off, we're going to take the time to answer a couple questions. You guys feel free to jump in as you please on some of these questions. So this one is from Somewhere in Between Podcast. Do you feel police departments value police officers' mental health or to seek counseling, or is there a stigma attached to that among officers? I think the only person that can answer this is Jacoby.
So I would say that yes, they do value it, but you also have to advocate for yourself. Like, it's not going to be something where somebody's just, I mean, they have peer support groups, at least in my department they do, and they do a pretty good job of trying to check into that or trying to give you the time off that you need if you're going through something, but you still got to advocate for yourself, right? Like, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So in my experiences, if I've spoken up and said, hey, I got something going on, I've been allowed that time to be like, all right, you know what? Let's see what we can do to work around that. And I think all departments are headed that way, but you definitely got to speak up for yourself and advocate for your own mental health.
That's a good one. That's a good one. This next question, hold on, where it go? Comes from Miss Sheila. As a Black man, what mental health precautions or what mental precautions, if any, do you have to take when doing simple tasks such as going to the store?
You got to get your outfit right. You got to make sure you got your mask. You got to make sure. I'm just telling you all the things that was a Black man, what we do when we walk out the door, right? No lie. Like, you going to make sure, okay, I got my slides, depending on how long I'm going to go, where I'm going, what city that I'm going into to get that, whatever it is. Those are all the intangibles that a Black man is really considering, right? Even if I go window shopping, I got to know I walk in that place, they're going to look at me funny if I walk out of there with nothing. So just to go to the store, the precautions, I'm going to make sure at least bare minimum. I know my area. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm going to go buy. Like my grandmother used to say, you're going to go buy milk, baby. You got milk, you got cereal. I need this. Those are your 3 things. Anything outside of that scope, man, just keep your head straight. You walk in there, you walking back. So just make sure that your head is on the swivel, like my dad tell me all the time.
let somebody know where you're going. That's, something I always be like, I'm going here, just letting you know. So, if it start getting late and I ain't back, you need to, start ringing some alarms. But I think just now, now with how society is you got to be overly cautious about just going outside, period. Because you never know now. Now we see in the media, you could be trying to help and you won't make it home that night if you wrongfully identified as somebody. So, I call my brother, my mom, I tell my wife, like, hey, I'm going here. It could be I'm going to 7-Eleven across the street. This is where I'm going, because you never know. A homeboy in the 7-Eleven store always be staring at me on the TV, getting some milk for the baby, brother. That's all. I ain't no smoke.
No smoke.
Here's the crazy part. I actually prepare mentally from the beginning. I look at what time I'm about to go out nowadays. So, and if I really need to do the task I got to do right now, and the reason why I'm speaking on it, I got pulled over because in my truck, one of my tires appeared to be thinning. That's what he pulled me over for. He said, hey, one of your tires, and my truck, I got pretty big tires because of what I have on them. So he was like, yeah, one of your tires look like they're thinning. Mind you, I'm at the light. And I said, you really pulled me over because my tire looked thin? And he was like, yeah, I thought you were on your phone. He said that too, because I had picked up for navigation and I put my phone to the side. And he was like, I thought I saw you on the phone. And he was honest about it. He was like, but also your tire looks a little thin. I said, man, this guy. So I say all that because now I really got to sit there and mentally think like, all right, what am I leaving my house for? Do I need to do that right now? Is it too late? And then what environment I'm going to be in? This is the same stuff I pass on to my son. Like, man, when you about to leave the house, check yourself from head to toe and mentally prepare yourself for the day, because you're going to probably get challenged and you're going to be like, what the hell for? So, and again, I'll go back to our first conversation is it's hard to maneuver as a Black man in a society that doesn't value you as a person. Like, it's just, that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, leaving the house, I got to mentally prepare myself just for what I may run into. And that's just how I approach the day. And then from there, I do everything that everybody else is saying, put my mask on, get everything else ready. But overall, what am I mean,
Rivers said, something powerful in his interview where he said, I can't be a coach. I got to be a Black coach, and then I got to be a Black dad. I can't just do my job. And, that stuck with me that it's true. He said, I got to be the educator about what it is to deal with Black people now. I got to be the spokesperson to tell you and to teach you how to deal with Black people. Why can't I just be a good coach? Why can't I just be a good father? Why can't I be a good citizen? Why do I always have to be, that's a good Black upstanding citizen? He's a good Black coach.
Big Sean just said, father. Big Sean just said in his new song with Nipsey Hussle, and I could relate to that line. He said, I got pressure on me. 7 days a week, it's game 7 on me. That's what it's like being a Black man, man. It's game 7 on me every day. And and I'll up the ante to the things that I take as precautions. My situation might be a little different not unless you live in Texas. I have to decide if I'm carrying a firearm, if I'm going outside or not, right? Like if I'm taking my family outside with me, I'm probably holding because it's different if it's just me. I'm willing to take some chances, but behind my family, I'll die about mine, and I'm not worried about how that's legally justified from the seat I sit in as a police officer. It's just about the protection for my family. But by myself or just with y'all, I might be, less inclined to carry because, everybody can hold their own and we all are in a different situation, as far as how we can take care of ourselves. So those are the things I think about if I'm traveling with my family or by myself, what type of clothing I need to wear to be able to be holding and things like that. Those are the things that I'm thinking about. And it's more because of the world we live in, not because I'm a police officer at all. I give a shit about carrying a gun because, I'm a cop and that's, something that's afforded to me. It's more about the world that we live in. I'm watching shit happen. It's like, damn, I can't let my family go out like that because I decided not to carry.
But that's
privilege. Sorry about that. My bad. Go ahead.
That's a privilege, bro. Because no lie, like like Nip said, you feel me? I'm out here playing off. We need to be playing offense. You feel me? We are here playing defense. A black man walking around with a gun saying the same thought process, want to protect their family, protect themselves, doing nothing. Shit, that's a death sentence if you got it. And it's like, but and you, when you come out, when you walk into the streets, they don't know if you law enforcement or not.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's why I was going to say, Pat, it's really not a
question. That's not the first question.
that's why I was going to say it's really not a privilege, right? Because, and that's just, I'm not going to go too deep into it. Nobody knows. It's not like I wear a special cloak or a special sign on my forehead that says law enforcement, right?
Unless you got Oakley's on.
And I don't wear them. I wear straight. But I'm saying, like, you know, you can't. I might be holding if you come and I get in a traffic stop. You know, I have to think about carrying my things securely, the responsible way, the law-abiding way, because of the simple fact that there probably might be a gun in my car, you know? And so those are things that I have to think about. Also, if I'm gonna get involved in a situation like that, I mean, yeah, I should be thinking, am I within, you know, department policy? But if it's life or death, I'm thinking more about my family. But if, you know, other officers are responding, anything could happen, right? Like, I still have to have the talk with my son. We not exempt from that. This is how we conduct ourselves on traffic stops. This is how I conduct myself on traffic stops. The same way I tell y'all to do it is not because I'm telling y'all some shit I didn't heard. It's because that's the same damn way I do it if I'm approaching them situations.
Right.
I'm not exempt.
Yeah, that's the first thing I grab. I grab my wallet just so I can be identified if something ever happens to me. And I also got my concealed carry. I got a gun with me for the most part. So, you know, it's just one of those things. I carry. I'm in Texas. That's something I can do. I can legally carry concealed. And you wouldn't know it was on me if you approach me. But when I do get pulled over, if I do, I hand them both because they can see that I got a concealed carry. I'm not trying to hide it.
Yeah.
I'm hand them my ID and I'm handing my concealed carry just so they be like, you got a gun in here? If they ask me, I can say yeah or no. But I'm gonna let you know up front that I'm not hiding anything. Here you go.
Yeah.
And that's no gun.
That's how it happens, right? It's like the precautions that you have to take when leaving your home. I think for me, every time I leave my home, for the most part, I consider, okay, what if I get pulled over today, right? So one, I have to always check my attitude. I try not to leave the home if I'm mad or in some type of distress, right? So that's like first and foremost for me. If I'm mad, me and my wife get into an argument or something like that, I'm not jumping in the car leaving. I'm gonna go upstairs. I may just go in my backyard. I'm not leaving my property because I don't necessarily always aware of my distress and how that may come off as others. Secondly, when I'm leaving my house, obviously, like Jeff said, I'm going to make sure I have my wallet, because if I get pulled over, I don't want to have to be dragged out of my car simply because the officer doesn't believe that the car belongs to me and my name is my name, right? And then obviously, I'm going to have, because I have my license to carry, I'm going to have my firearm with me. More than likely, my firearm is, somewhere, safe, but I'm going to have my firearm on me, and I have to be mindful of where it is in my vehicle at all times, right? And then fourth, for me, it's making sure that no matter what I do when I'm gone, I make it back home to my family, right? So, like, I'm always aware of, like,
you heard what Toby said. I hope you make it home. That's Toby.
Yeah, you gotta be mindful of those situations. It's like, I'm always mindful of how I interact with people when I'm in grocery stores, how I interact with people when I'm in 7-Eleven, how I interact with people out in public, because if somebody views me as a threat, do they call the police on me? And does that turn into a situation where I have guns pointed on me and I put my hands up and then they see I got my firearm on my side? Now, is that a situation because I didn't have an opportunity to remove it before the police came, right? It's just me being shocked and scared, and now do I get shot? So there's always a lot of things that you have to consider, and I think those are definitely important. It's making sure that we all make it home to our family, our friends, and our loved ones. And I always tell people, man, if you got to get on your knees and say please, sometimes say please so you can make it home to your family. I hate to say that, but the reality is, right, you file that complaint, you file that lawsuit later on, but make sure you make it home to your family. Don't go out there trying to be a tough guy thinking that they won't do nothing to you just because you used to know how to fight back in the hood. They ain't fighting with you. They got guns. So that'd be a whole nother situation. All right. Well, brothers, again, I appreciate you guys jumping on, Pat and Al. We appreciate you guys. We're more than likely gonna have to do a part 2. So, you know, we'll have everybody back.
Hey, Dewan, before you close out too, I met an African American gentleman earlier today in front of the Safeway, and I promised him because he was trying to sell his book about mental health, and it just so happened that we were talking about that today. I promised him that I would definitely pub that book if he decided he wanted to give me a copy. So this is Mr. Sherman Holmes. He is selling that book on Amazon, you guys. It is about mental health, damaged goods. Please check him out. African American brothers talking about his experiences from Fresno all the way to the Bay, and he's now a counselor and once was a probation officer. So I just met him on a fluke. I promised I would pub him. You know, we support all of you guys. Shout out to all the counselors out there. But Mr. Sherman Holmes, Damaged Goods, check him out.
Sherman Holmes?
Sherman Holmes. sounds like our man from the gym.
I like that one.
He's
this is a book, man, that I always tell people to go out and read. Unapologetically Guide to Black Mental Health. The author is Rita Walker, PhD. I think that's a good book to read. But I think, obviously, we need to know more about mental health. Another good one that I think we've all read is Shook One by Charlamagne the God. I think that's a really good book, too, because it illustrates anxiety and how anxiety plays a role into your life. So, again, we'd like to thank everybody. Please go out and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Braspective. You can, Pat and Al, you go ahead and tell them where they can find y'all at.
Yeah, you can just find me in these streets because I move how I move. You know what I mean? It is what it is. You know how. hey, you can find me now. Real talk, man. I'm a counselor up at Camp Lindo High School, man. I probably make the most noise. I feel like I'm the only black man in the area, so I got a good team behind me up there.
You can find me at I'm a counselor also over at Diablo Valley College with the Contra Costa Community College. Same thing. You know, feel like, you know, I'm one of the very few black voices on campus. You know, if you haven't, you know, Google DVC, I had to go ahead and Google them, and they stay racially slurs all over the campus, and they kind of brushing under the rug. And I'm now starting to ask questions like, why are we not talking about this in this time? Like, why, you know? So you can check me out, find me up there. Alex Baker, you Google me, I pop up smiling. You know,
what's y'all Instagram, man? Y'all got people that may want to find y'all.
You can holler at me at Pepe Daddy all day. You know what I mean? It is.
Oh yeah, you can find me at
on Facebook.
Shot by Sheldon B. I'm a photographer too, so you want to feel good about yourself. You know, I'm implementing this photography and mental health. So come, you know, do yourself up, you know, and come take some nice pictures. You can also find me at Forgive Clothing. Positive message about true healing starts here. So check it out. You know, America, be happy. Pat got on one of our products, which is good. You know, it's been on here before. Thank you for the support on there, but you can find me on those 2 social media platforms.
Find us all at Braspective. Please DM us if you need us. DM us at Braspective.
I'm on Facebook, Patrick Turner, and on LinkedIn. Find me.
Well, there we go. Well, I appreciate everyone. Again, follow us, like us on YouTube, subscribe, all that. We got more content coming. And everybody, you know, again, prayers to your families, your friends, and your loved ones. I want everybody to continue to make it home safe to their family. And again, thank you guys. You guys have a good, healthy, safe week. Wakanda forever. Wakanda
Chadwick Boseman.
forever.
Damn, throw me out of there.